There's a new way to play Tetris, and it's literally changing the game.
Moving the rolling to the bottom, absolutely genius.
好来，这是这次介绍的俄罗斯方块的最新玩法 Rolling。
Cheese completes the chase down on level 32! Are you kidding me?
At the end of 2020, a Tetris player named Cheese developed a new, faster technique for moving pieces to the side in NES Tetris called rolling. Immediately, records of all types were smashed, and 6 players rose above the rest with the new playstyle to go undefeated versus everyone else in the top monthly online tournaments and become the leading contenders for the 2022 world title, being dubbed the Big Six. Michael Arteaga, aka Dog Playing Tetris, was the frontrunner, having racked up 2 world championship titles in 2020 and 2021 when the tournament was held online during the pandemic. But he hadn't yet won a world title at a live event or with the new rolling technique. Could he pull off 3 titles in a row? Andy Arteaga, aka Pixel Andy, had gone undefeated versus the rest of the world in the previous 2 world championships, only to lose to his own younger brother Dog in the 2020 finals and 2021 semifinals. If he faced his brother again in 2022, could he finally pull off a victory? Jacob Huff, aka Hufflepuffus, had nearly become the first roller to win the World Championships in 2021, but had fallen just short in the finals versus Dog. He'd stepped up his game this year, winning multiple regional titles and his first online monthly title. Could he finally be the first roller to win a world title? Alex Thatch, aka Alex T, was the biggest Tetris prodigy the scene had ever seen, at one point being the game's youngest max-outer and racking up multiple monthly titles. And when I did a statistical analysis video of the Big Six before the tournament, he seemed to have the best stats. But could he deliver on those stats in the biggest tournament of his Tetris career? Eric Tolt, aka Eric ICX, was the current overall score world record holder in NES Tetris, but had struggled with consistency in competition, and had not managed to win a monthly title since he switched to rolling. Could he finally reach his full potential? Justin Yu, aka Fractal161, was the Swiss Army knife of Tetris, conquering impossible challenges left and right and being the first to reach the bugged color levels in the PAL version of the game. But he'd been eliminated earlier than expected in previous world tournaments. Could he finally shake off the world stage jitters and go as far as everyone knew he could? And then on the other end of the spectrum, there was me. I wasn't a contender to win it all. Heck, I had never even gotten into the brackets, having choked during the qualifying stage in 4 straight world championships. My goal was to just finally make it in, but since I wasn't a roller, this was going to be tougher than ever. So on October 13th, 2022, I packed my bags and headed to the Philadelphia airport. This would be my 5th World Championships overall, but the 3rd one that was happening in person. And I wouldn't just be going alone like in 2018 or with my fiancée Una like in 2019. This time, I'd be joined by a 3rd person on the journey there. ICX, Una, and I had completed the journey to the World Championship stage at the Portland Retro Gaming Expo, which was in the exact same corner of the convention hall where Joseph won his first World Championship in the most iconic Tetris match of all time. But in 2018, there had been only 1 row of CRT televisions to qualify on. This year, there was row after row of CRT televisions ready for qualifying later that day, along with dozens of cables to make sure it would all render properly into a fancy HD broadcast. There were people preparing the gold and silver game cards, prizes for those who made the brackets, and the gold and silver J trophies stood waiting for the 2 ultimate finalists. A sign at the front reminded players that they might be appearing in a future documentary, and merch was being sold for Best of 5, a documentary about one of the previous years that was about to be released, and the inventor of the Goofiva controller, Steve DeLuca, was there to sell products for his brand Total Radness. Everything was pointing to this being the best CTWC yet. And then the players started started to arrive. Because so much growth in the scene had happened during the previous 2 years of the pandemic, this year featured almost all the top players showing up to the World Championships for the very first time, and was by far the most talented group of classic Tetris players ever assembled. Everyone crowded around to watch the two-time champion Dog get the first max out or million-point score of the day. Players recited meme quotes from previous broadcasts.
17 piece drops, 17 drops, there's a lawnmower, and you have a new world champion.
And he's not even rolling.
Well, actually, Dog was in fact rolling, but Brodendamp wasn't. He dropped down a max out using hyper tapping, where a single finger presses every input one at a time, and it's more difficult to get super fast piece movement. Then tournament co-founder Adam Cornelius gave out a call for free play to end as qualifying was about to begin.
We only have 30 minutes to get you guys to your qualifying slot, and we cannot get behind today. If you are in Group 1, come to me. See me.
Group 1, head up there.
So here's how qualifying worked. In years past, people lined up to play one game at a time to post qualifying scores. But by 2019, the previous in-person year, there were so many participants that the line had just gotten way too long. So in 2022, everyone would get 2 solid hours to play on a station and pick between 4 qualifying time slots, with a 5th bonus one on Saturday morning for anyone who absolutely could not make it there on Friday. All the scores would then be sorted onto a leaderboard, and the top 48 players would make the gold bracket to compete for a world title, and the next 32 would make the silver bracket. Anyone lower would be eliminated. Chris Tang, the commentator since the very first year of the tournament, was invited to the stage to kick off the first qualifying slot.
And boom, Tetris for you. We will be starting the qualifying rounds of CTWC 2022. Get hype and get ready for boom, Tetris action in our first live event in almost 3 years. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Tetris! And there will be blocks. There absolutely will be max outs. And who knows? Maybe there will be a few Mullins at the very end just for that extra flex.
And just like that, CTWC 2022 had started. Players of all ages and playstyles got to work posting scores. Chris Bidwell was standing up in the tradition of a pro Dr. Mario player and using the old school DAS technique. Tetris Time was hyper tapping on a small table he had brought to hold his controller steady. And Cheese, the inventor of rolling, was of course using rolling. And the scores were already starting to come in fast. Oh my gosh, they keep rolling in. So here's how posting scores worked. A player would get a score they wanted to submit on one of the stations, in this case Laser Monkey had just gotten a max out, and then a judge would write down the player's name and score on an index card.
Son, hell yeah.
The judge would then rush it over as quickly as he could to the scorekeeping dream team of Chris Forrest and Hillary Mead, who would get it entered into the spreadsheet.
Max out. Submitted. Next.
The score would then show up immediately on the leaderboard. Players' rankings would first be determined by number of max outs and then by their highest non-max out score, aka the kicker. This first qualifying slot would be a banger, as 3 of the big 6 were currently duking it out on the main stage. The way to get max outs was to get approximately 60% of Burns lines in a game from 4 line clears, aka Tetrises that would score the most points before the maximum speed of level 29, where things would get too fast for any playstyle except rolling to reliably get pieces to the sides, and even with rolling, players would not want to spend tons of time lining out to a max out on that speed if they could help it, both because it was a lot more difficult and since it would cost them extra time during their qualifier. Huffaluffagus had actually opted to go with a super unorthodox strategy of starting on level 19, the fastest possible starting speed, while the Artiaga brothers had opted for the traditional level 18 starts. Level 19 would be more difficult to play consistently on, but Huff was betting that he could possibly squeeze out a couple more max outs into his qual session if he could get the max outs quicker on the faster speed. The strat didn't get off to a great start though, as Huff whiffed on his first game. He didn't even bother to submit the score as a kicker because it was so low. He was able to find his groove though and get 4 straight max outs afterwards.
And there it is, there's a back-for-back 19 max out for Huff.
This would pull him even with the steady and consistent Arteaga brothers, who had already rolled their way to 4 clean max outs in each of their first 4 games.
And there it is, boom, max out for Andy.
After Huff whiffed the max out on another level 19 game, it appeared that his strategy was probably doing more harm than good, and he went back to level 18 starts. Although when I asked Huff directly about his mindset during the quals afterwards, he said in this moment that he had actually just gotten bored of doing 19 starts. But regardless of the reason, it worked out for him, and he got 3 straight max outs afterwards. An hour in, their qualifiers were still in a near dead heat, and none of them had even submitted kickers, not wanting to waste any time calling a judge over to record a score that wasn't a max. Dog had a perfect qualifier going and was on his way to a 9th straight max out, but it wasn't meant to be.
And Dog is gonna unfortunately top out 128 lines, so the back-to-back streak is broken.
Huff would also end up just missing a max out after not getting a clean board until level 29, and the next game ditched level 18 and went back to level 19 starts again. Towards the end of the 2 hours, all eyes were on Dog and Andy, who were leading the pack with 12 max outs each, tying the world record first set by Joseph Saley in 2020. Nobody had ever gotten over 12 max outs in World Championships qualifying before. With barely 8 minutes remaining in the 2-hour time slot, Dog switched up his level 18 strategy and opted for a level 19 start, in a risky race against time to try and make it possible for him to get 2 more games in. As long as he could get a max out and start another game before the clock ran out, he would be allowed to finish it. And with barely a minute left on the clock, he was nearly there.
There's a
Tetris for Dog. One more.
Oh, there it is!
And
There's the max!
Another max!
13
maxes for Dog! Wow! And time to get another one. Barely.
Dog had broken the record, but even more significantly, his strategy had worked. He was able to start another game before the judge called for time.
Time has expired, so no new games.
out your games! Do not start a new one!
This will be the final run for all 4 players.
Andy would get his 13th max out shortly afterwards, which would tie Dog for the new qualifying record, but he missed the opportunity for an extra game. Now, Dog was chasing even bigger history. He could be the first player ever to get 14 max outs in a qual.
Is Jay dependent on the left? Is
Really
that
needs
gonna be a
that log
problem?
bar.
Oh, the log bar needs to come. Oh no, there's a drought. That's an incredibly high right. Can he get it over? Can he get it over? Where's the log bar? There it is!
But what a valiant attempt by Dog, getting 13 maxes in quals.
Despite missing the 14th max, that score would be recorded as Dog's first kicker. And since Andy never submitted a kicker, that meant Dog automatically won the tiebreaker to get first seed. Huff had also done incredibly well though, finishing just behind the Arteaga brothers with 12, and again with that kicker had nearly gotten 13 himself. There were so many max outs being submitted that the record keepers had resorted to laying out giant rows of cards for every player to make sure they didn't lose track of any of the scores. For the second qualifying session, the first commentator, Sharky, would now take the stage to qualify, handing over the commentary to longtime duo Chris Tang and James Chen.
And it looks like we're underway for round number 2 here. I mean, again, the precedent set by round number 1, I mean, it's gonna be tough to beat that, but here we go.
The second qualifying slot did have a lot of hype going for it though. The trio of players that had traveled from Mexico were all qualifying next to each other in custom-made Team Mexico jerseys. And joining Sharky on the main stage were the 3 other members of the Big Six. They had all decided to get their qualifiers done early in the day. Surprisingly, the normally aggressive Alex Thatch had opted for the safer level 18 starts, while Fractal and Eric had both opted for level 19 starts. But the increased speed didn't seem to faze them. Eric managed to outdo Dog by storming his way to 9 straight max outs to open out his qualifier.
There it is!
Yes.
Another max out!
Max out number 9.
9 in a row!
So we're looking to see something unprecedented.
To top it off, again, because they were 19 starts, these were quicker max outs too. Fractal wasn't far behind, getting his 8th max out in just 6.5 minutes, the quickest one yet in the day. Typically, the level 18 start max outs took about 8.5 to 10 minutes to get, so every successful 19 start was saving up to 2 to 3 minutes of time. And meanwhile, Alex T was chugging along, but was well behind pace of Fractal and Eric with only 4 max outs. points, both due to doing 18 starts and having whiffed on 4 games so far. And for Sharky, a DAS player, well, he couldn't rely on post-level 29 play at all. DAS was the slowest of the 3 main playstyles, limited to the speed of the built-in auto-shift of the game where you hold the buttons down instead of mashing them. Level 29 was virtually impossible with this technique and would be his hard limit for scoring. And he was fighting for redemption as he had just missed the gold bracket the previous year by getting only 1 max out in qualifying when it took at least 2 to get in. This year, after coming close multiple times, he finally got his first max over 1 hour and 40 minutes in. Sharky didn't have much time left, but incredibly he managed to tee up another one in the very next game.
There it is! Another max for Sharky. Number 2 on the board.
2 max outs would almost certainly seal him a spot in gold. And from the audience, I couldn't help but have my eyes glued to Eric and Fractal. They were raining down max outs like no tomorrow, at one point maxing out within literal frames of each other. When the final time was called, they both sat at 13 max outs, meaning if they could max out their current games, they could both break the record and get 14. All Dog and Andy could do was watch. Eric and Fractal sprinted to the finish line as the audience looked on with bated breath.
9, 7, 7, oh!
There it is! Max
14! 14 max outs!
14 max outs!
Eric!
14 max outs!
And 14 for
14
Fractal!
for Fractal. World records shattered.
This is absolutely insane.
When the dust had settled, the leaderboard was stunning. The qualifying record had now been broken 4 times in a single day, with Fractal on top having just barely edged out Eric with a better kicker. And fascinatingly to me, this was a case where Slow and Steady didn't actually win the race. Dog and Andy had played nearly perfect, maxing out 13 out of 14 and 13 out of 15 games. But Fractal and Eric had maxed out 14 of 19 games each. They'd actually whiffed on more games than the Arteagas, but the time saved from level 19 more than made up for it. And then there was the case of Alex T, who had maxed out just 9 of 16 games and was all the way down at 7th seed.
So in my video about the Big 6, I predicted that Alex T was gonna take it home. I thought he was really underrated in all of his statistics once I looked at it. But there's also the X factor of what it's like to play live. And out of all the Big 6 today, Alex T is the one that kind of struggled the most. He didn't even do badly, you know, still got 9 max outs, but it seemed like the tournament nerves, the in-person nerves were affecting him a little bit more than some of the other players.
Upon further analysis though, it wasn't just the games Alex T whiffed on that had cost him max outs. Multiple times he had also kept playing after he had already maxed, either just to practice or try and set a live world record. And on max out number 8, he managed to get all the way to level 54, which was incredibly impressive, but in the context of a qualifier, it was not only unnecessary, but actually detrimental, as it cost him a huge amount of time, and a lower seed would possibly be setting him up for an unfavorable bracket position relative to the other top contenders. The third qualifying slot was a bit of a breather. With the Big 6 now done for the day, and my own qualifier not scheduled until slot 4, I was able to take a break from anxiously watching the main stage and take more of a look at some of the lesser known players qualifying, as they had also been getting some cool achievements of their own throughout the day.
What just happened?
700k PB, let's go.
Sweet! Okay, awesome.
There had also been an entire Tetris Effect Connected tournament happening on the side, featuring many of the top zone stars such as Yoshimi and Kibibite. And of course, there was the staple of every Tetris event, Signature Gathering. Una and I got our Tetris cards filled up with the signatures of top players, which was the most common item to get signed. But in addition to cards, I ended up being asked to sign everything from t-shirts to CRT television casings. There was no break for the tireless record keepers though, as they worked straight through lunch and entering more qual scores. And then it was time for qual session 4. This was it. I was finally up, and I had actually been given a seat on one of the 2 main stages. I would have my qualifier commentated by Van Dweller, the voice of Classic Tetris Monthly and one of the premier commentators in the scene. No pressure. The last time I had been on the main stage for a qualifier in 2019, I had bombed horribly, and I was determined not to let that happen again. As a barely passable DAS player, I wasn't going to be in the hunt for multiple max outs to make the gold bracket. Heck, I didn't even have a single max out yet at the time, but I did have an outside chance at the silver bracket. And at the end of qual session 3, the cutoff to make it in was only 677,000. I knew that was going to rise after the players in the 4th and 5th qualifying slots got their scores in, so I figured I needed at least 900,000 to be safe. I knew I just had to push the aggression hard when I had time to spare at the beginning, but the pieces just didn't seem to be working out for timely Tetrises. Early on in the qual, I had managed to take a game to level 27, and I went all in on a Tetris but didn't get the long bar until I had destroyed my stack. This forced me to burn almost all my remaining lines before level 29, but I did manage to force across one last-ditch Tetris at the end to push my score to 748,000. I knew this score had very little chance of getting me in, but I still submitted it, as it was at least a new World Championships qualifying PB for me, just edging out my score from the previous year. But then, just 10 minutes later, I finally had the game I was looking for. After a bunch of clean Tetrises post-transition, I was at 750,000 on level 26. This was on pace for 900,000. I played it safe on a tough sequence, but once I burned down, I knew I had to push the aggression. I set up for a Tetris, but then burned to save the stack health right as a long bar came. Knowing I was running out of time, I went all in on a dirty Tetris on level 27 and skimmed just long enough to survive until a Tetris came, then burned into level 28 and the display glitched out, displaying my 800k as over 1 million. I had time for 3 more Tetrises, which would put me over 900k. I got the first one, tried to set up for a second, but then got long bars at the wrong time. I gambled on a J dependency, but got an L instead, and then missed an S that I tried to put all the way to the left, and the board completely unraveled. I grimaced as I tried to figure out what to do with my remaining lines, but there weren't any good options. I burned into level 29 with 848,000. Relieved to have improved my score, but still having fallen short of my goal, and unsure if it was a good enough score to get me in. For most of the rest of the qual session, I tried to match the pace I had on that game, but couldn't replicate it. And then on this game, right as I had gotten myself into a pickle, I heard the fateful words from the judge. And it was the most unsettling time to hear that too, because with DAS, I couldn't get a long bar over 7 rows high on the left, so I would need a bailout long bar for the right to have any chance at surviving. I just managed to get one in time to give myself a chance to save the game, but it just wasn't in the cards.
Wish I could edit on a better game than that, but hopefully it gets me to silver.
I wasn't the most optimistic about my chances, but when I checked the leaderboard, I was completely shocked. I had somehow managed to qualify above legendary players from the past, such as Batfoy, who finished 3rd in 2019, or Quaid, who finished 2nd in 2015. Quaid's best qualifying game really should have been a max out, but it ended prematurely when he went all in on one of his signature center wells. Although I'd had mixed feelings about my best game at the time, it turned out that it was finally the clutch qualifying performance I'd been hoping to get for years. With 14 spots above the cutoff to spare, unless nearly everyone in qual slot 5 posted scores above me, it seemed like I was virtually guaranteed to make it in.
It is day 2 of the Classic Tetris World Championships. The final qualifiers are happening this morning, and then the brackets start. I got very lucky yesterday. I had my best qual score ever, so I might actually make it into silver. We'll have to see by the end of this morning. And Una's gonna qualify as well.
The 5th qualifying slot players got started right away, and Una was one of them, as she had been offered the opportunity to compete in an extra available slot at the last minute. She qualified on a station next to Kim Moore, whose husband Jeff Moore had famously made the finals in 2016, but was coming off an unfortunate qualifying performance in 2021, where for the first time he had failed to make any of the brackets. But he was not about to let that happen again. Right at the beginning of his qualifier, Jeff stormed his way to a first max out with lines to spare. With a max, he would be guaranteed to at least play in the silver bracket. Chris Tang, who had made the iconic original call of "Boom, Tetris for Jeff" on the commentary in 2016, was filming the moment on his cell phone. Incredibly, Jeff wasn't done. He rode a subsequent game all the way to 998,000 right before level 29. Being a DAS player, he wouldn't be able to play for any longer after that, and he only needed a double but perilously set up for a Tetris.
Give the bar! The bar! Bar!
For the first time since 2020, Jeff was back in the gold bracket. But Jeff just kept going. He got all the way within one Tetris of a third max out right before level 29 again, but misdropped setting up the final Tetris. It seems like he had choked it. It's hard to describe just how insane it was to watch a veteran DAS player clutch up a max out with lines on 29. It was probably the most hyped moment of the event so far, and that was saying a lot. And unbelievably, Jeff got set up for another one.
Yes?
Jeff had put up one of the greatest performances by an old school veteran ever, finishing well above many top tappers and rollers in the rankings. Meanwhile, Una finished up her qualifying session with a mid 400k score.
You did good.
Now that the scores were finalized, I went to go check the leaderboard one more time.
Oh my gosh, 70th seed. I finally made it after 5 years. I'm in a bracket.
The best part was I wasn't celebrating alone. Jonesy, who had qualified right next to me on stage and had gotten 804,000, had managed to make it in as the very last seed for silver.
Jonesy, you made it in! Yeah. 80th seed!
Yeah.
Clutch.
Into my teeth.
Alright, who am I playing? Who am I playing? So I finally found out I have made the silver bracket. I made it into a bracket for the first time after 5 years of trying, and my first round opponent is Terry Purcell.
Hey, I didn't know that. Cool. Well, I'm glad. I hope to ruin your day. I'm just kidding.
Terry was actually one of the very first players I had remembered watching when I first found the scene from videos of the 2015 World Championships. So it was going to be an incredible honor to play him. The main stage then filled up with everyone in the gold brackets to receive their prize Tetris carts and continue the annual tradition of a group picture. It was almost entirely younger people who had started playing more recently, and then Jeff, the only representative who had played in a World Championships event before 2019.
Photographers, I invite you to begin shooting. Look at Dan up here in the chair. Say 3, 2, 1, Tetris.
And after years of waiting, I finally had the opportunity to be part of the ceremony as well. I got to put my name on the annual CTWC banner that all the bracket participants would sign and stand in the silver bracket photo. And then there was a surprise announcement. Tournament co-founder Vince Clemente presented the first Lifetime Achievement Award.
Boom! Trophy for Tang!
Dude, nobody told me, man. Surprise. Oh my goodness.
Thank you so much for this honor. I never thought I'd have one of these. The thing that brings me the most happiness is the CTWC and the Classic Tetris community, because I get to see a little bit of the joy that I felt in all of you. You know, when I think back to the NWC and Robin Mahara and Thor Ackerland and hanging out and having my first gaming bros, they're still my best friends in the whole wide world. And they set the stage for what I did for the rest of my life. This world is crazy, but we've got each other, and if we could share great things that we're happy about and are excited about, and we love to cheer each other on for, then that's what I'm going to be fighting for too. And the thing that I want to do for as long as I can do it is to boom the Tetrises for all of you here at CTWC 2022. It is Saturday, and it is time for brackets.
Chris, I think it's time.
All right, let's go. Everybody together with me. 3, 2, 1. Tetris!
And immediately, the games did not disappoint. The players were now on modified ROMs that could go above 1 million points, and the goal was simple: score more than your opponent before the game ends. The matches were best of 5, so the first to 3 victories advances to the next round. The rolling inventor Cheese was facing off against a DAS player turned roller Burb Wizard, who had barely squeaked into the gold bracket at 48th seed and was a huge underdog. But incredibly, he held his own, going back and forth with Cheese with some games already breaking the 1,000,000 point barrier until they were all tied up at 2 games apiece. The final game would be winner takes all. Burbwizard had built up a massive 180,000 point lead by the transition to level 29, and Cheese would need to use the power of his technique to play deep past level 29 to stay alive in the tournament. Burbwizard started to falter on level 31 as Cheese threw down a massive center wall Tetris to cut into the lead, but after Burb topped out, Cheese had a crucial misflip.
The concentration level has to be at its peak. There's a misdrop. Cheese is gonna hang the long bar.
Problem. Can't get it over.
He's out of it.
Takes the match.
I can't believe it.
Cheese has been eliminated. Oh my goodness.
Somehow, Burbwizard had managed to defeat Cheese with Cheese's own technique. The DAS players who had stuck with DAS weren't faring so well though. After making it into the gold bracket, Sharky had an unfortunate first round exit against the roller Jordan after just 4 games, where he got into a situation where he couldn't burn and got droughted on the long bars. After getting the incredible 4 max outs in qualifying, Jeff couldn't quite manage to get any max outs in his first round match against Oscar, one of the players from Team Mexico, and 3 games later, Oscar had advanced. But there was a newer DAS player named Tugi who'd come all the way from Austria, having never been to Portland before. The European Tetris scene was known for their playful chants and taunts, and sure enough, they started up when Tugi took the stage.
Sounds like we have one Tugi supporter, and the rest of the crowd is not quite on Tugi.
Tugi's first match was against the Canadian roller Ella, and after losing the first 2 games, things looked pretty dire. He would need 3 straight wins to advance now. In Game 3, Tugi was 100,000 points behind, and it looked like it would be the end as his board snaked up to the top of the screen, but he managed to get a long bar over at the last possible moment. Shortly afterwards, Ella topped out after a battle at the top of the screen, and suddenly Tugi had a chance. But the hard limit of level 29 was coming up fast.
1,800 points, and that
and a triple
doesn't
will
take
do
the
it.
triple. Passes up the triple.
One more line will do it. And there it is.
Boom! Tetris for Tugi, completing the chase down with the Tetris.
After a miracle Game 3 win, Tugi turned up the heat, throwing up a max out in Game 4.
And there it is, max out for Tugi.
Ella was so far behind that she couldn't make up the deficit past level 29, even with rolling.
Ella in trouble. We might be looking at a decider, but still, no, not able to quite get it.
Wow.
And what a
Tugi
dominant
taking
game
the
by
round.
Tugi.
Yeah, dominant round for Tugi from a DAS player versus a roller.
And then in a winner-takes-all Game 5, the unthinkable happened.
Long bar is kind of starting to become necessary.
Oh, that left side. It's going to be really tough to get anything over there.
Long bar needs
the
to come
long
in.
bar,
Oh,
and that's
we have
going to
an
be a top
upset.
out. DAS has beaten rolling. Tugi is going to advance, eliminating Ella. What an upset, like you just said.
Tugi was the only DAS player in the gold bracket to advance past the first round. But unfortunately, he had none other than Dog playing Tetris up next. He did his best, but Dog easily took the set in 3 games.
Tugi's gonna top out at 934, so Dog is good for game number 3. And your 2-time world champ advances to the top 16.
Meanwhile, over in the silver bracket, there was also plenty of action going on. These matches were even quicker, as instead of best of 5s, they were best of 3s.
Scout is taking this moment in. This will end up in a video someday.
Jonesy, the guy who had slipped in at the final seed, unfortunately had his tournament run end fairly quickly, losing in the first round to Rick. But some of the underperformers in the qualifying stage found some redemption in the brackets. Batfoy faced off against Matt Martin in the first round. Incredibly, this was a rematch from 3 years prior when they had faced off in the top 8 of the 2019 World Championships. And just like in 2019, Batfoy was able to advance again in a decider. Quaid was facing off first round against the Roller Renz, known for his parody channel Classic Tetris News, and Quaid didn't seem to have high hopes of winning.
Game I'm gonna play today, so you guys better be loud.
And sure enough, Quaid didn't get off to a great start, topping out before the transition, with Renz just needing a small chase down to take it. But then a crucial misdrop happened at just the wrong time for Renz.
Oh! That's a bit of an issue there.
That could be it! That could be it!
He just needs 3,000 points.
He's gonna get it!
Renz is gonna hang it. I did that. And in your face. slam dunk.
In Game 2, Renz had a game malfunction, so the game was voided.
Oh, I win! Yeah! I was crushing! Sorry.
Quaid topped out right away when the game was replayed, evening up the set.
That sucks.
It does, dude.
Give me a good number. Give me 420 and I'll crush you.
Quaid got Renz to agree to play on the starting seed number 420, and he would end up taking the decider to advance. And then it was time for my matchup. I walked onto the stage. The lights, the crowd, everything I had thought about all these years was right in front of me.
3, 2, 1, Tetris!
The biggest thing I wanted to avoid was stumbling out of the gate. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. I played out all the fundamentals of competitive Tetris as best I could. Clean right wells for Tetrises, safe digs out of messes. It was all going according to plan.
Screen looking by Scout. Look at this advanced strats. That's what I want to see. Somebody look behind for the score. Get the 180-degree neck turn.
And then, unfortunately, I had an early dash load at the worst possible time, right before the level 19 transition. I needed to clean up the mess fast, but couldn't quite get things in order before the speed change happened. And then on a T-piece that probably should have gone to the right, I tried placing it on the left and whiffed on getting it over. This wasn't immediately fatal, as I had the chance to dig out of it, but the increased speed meant there was little margin for error. And after clutching a long bar to the left, I erroneously threw a J to the left instead of placing it in the center, and shut off access to the leftmost column, ending the game.
Can Scout get something left? Can't get it left, and Terry takes game 1.
I would need a win in Game 2 to stay alive, but right at the beginning, it seemed like I would get the lucky break I needed. Terry had a tough luck misdrop, which happens occasionally, but it quickly turned disastrous after he misdropped again on top of it. He clutched up a tuck in a Tetris to avoid imminent death, but his board was going to be in a state of disarray for quite some time.
Insert your B-type joke. Out's ahead by 40,000. Can really extend his lead, and Terry is looking a little defeated, but I think he's going to burn us down.
I was able to use the opportunity to build up a huge lead, playing carefully this time and coasting safely into the level 19 transition. But right at the most pivotal point of the game, the internet started to sputter out on the stream. Fortunately, Una was recording the whole match on her phone, so I can see what happened. Since I had a huge lead, I wanted to minimize risk, so I was taking burns every time I could instead of waiting out for Tetrises. But after nearly 2 levels of this, I didn't want to give Terry an easy path to catch up, so I finally committed to a Tetris setup and then got stuck in a tough spot. I got a Z piece when I really could have used an S for the left, and then got a square. I really didn't want to put it on the right as it would shut off all my safety burns, and in a moment of indecision, I fumbled on putting it fully to the left, tried taking the burns, and got the right column open, but this was ugly. I would need a long bar to survive. Fortunately, I got one, but then my finger missed the button and the bar didn't rotate. Oof. Now, I wasn't the first player to top out like this in the World Championships. Corian had infamously gotten eliminated on a misflipped long bar in 2017, a year where he was expected to be a top contender to win it all. But man, this was one of the most unexpected ways I thought I would go out. 99% of the time I'd have my games at home end on missing getting a long bar far enough over, not on missing the rotation. But that's Tetris for you. Terry was still behind in the score, but of course he was a pro, and had plenty of time to chase it down, even setting up a Tetris to win it.
He's gonna get it. And there it is.
The Tetris for Terry will move him on in the tournament. Scout eliminated.
Although, of course, I would have preferred not to go out like that. I'm glad I didn't have any early top outs. Got to have some games that lasted a while. Never actually been eliminated live in person by a chase down. So it was cool actually to be in the driver's seat, you know, have a lead. The other person has to earn it a little bit. So I'm glad that Terry got to advance, and I'll be rooting for him later in the silver bracket.
Even though the match didn't go the way I'd hoped, the thing I find nice about the way classic Tetris matches work is they really do facilitate an environment of good sportsmanship. Like, Terry hadn't actually ruined my day by pulling some cheap move or dirty trick on me. We were both completely in charge of our own games, which created a dynamic where everybody could kind of independently root for each other to do their best.
Honestly, I'm glad to be playing you. I couldn't have played a better person.
No, I'm so glad
thank you for everything you do. I seriously love the videos and I learn a lot from them.
Thank you so much.
Unfortunately, Terry had to face the phenom Batfoy the very next round, and that would be the end of his run.
Go to 29s and Terry at 781. Can't go any further. Batfoy! 848 to start the game.
We love you too, Terry. We love you, Terry.
When I went back to go watch more gold bracket matches, I ended up sitting in front of Pollo, who was intensely focused on Noe's match on stage as the hopes of Team Mexico lied with him. Pollo had been eliminated by DDT in the silver bracket, and after beating Jeff, Oscar had been taken out by the roller Tristop in the next round. So Noe was the last of the trio of Mexican players to still be in any of the brackets. And he was facing none other than Burb Wizard, the player who'd upset Cheese. But game 1 ended prematurely for Burb after a dig sequence that proved deadly after a dead drop of a T-piece. And in game 2, an early top out happened again.
Eyepiece needs to fall. Eyepiece doesn't come in. An early top out from Burb again. So Noe takes game number 2.
Noe was now up 2 games to none and on the verge of advancing, but needed one more game. And it came down to the wire. With both players above 1,000,000 points, level 29 was looming. And both of them were trying to hold out for one last Tetris that didn't seem to come.
Now we holding out for this last Tetris before 29, and this board is starting to get dangerous. And we're running into a trouble, and now he's in trouble. Now he needs to get pieces and try and open up the well, but it's not gonna happen. But same thing's gonna happen for Burb. Burb trying to do it, and now he's gonna take game number 3.
Noe taking it by just under 1 Tetris.
Noe had done it. Team Mexico had advanced to the top 16. Since the top 16 wouldn't start until the next day, Noe now had the rest of the day to rest and prepare. Looking at the big picture of the brackets, all of the big 6 had easily progressed to the top 16 by the end of the day. Well, everyone except maybe Eric. His top 32 opponent, K-Poke, built a massive lead into level 29 on the first game, and Eric had to line out until level 34 to win. Game 2, K-Poke had an even bigger lead into level 29, and it took Eric until level 37 to chase it down. After Eric topped out early in game 3, K-Poke had the biggest lead yet into level 29 in game 4. A monstrous 200,000, and this time it took Eric all the way until level 43 before he had finished the chase down and would finally advance to the top 16.
Eric is gonna advance to top 16. But I want you guys to give an extra round of applause to K-Poke. That performance was phenomenal.
KK Confusing Poke is my goat. Line cap CWC.
Given that it was the last match of the day, Eric kept playing and got all the way to level 47. Completely uncharted territory for within a World Championships match. But even then, none of us could have predicted what would happen the following day during the big finale featuring the top 16 to the finals.
There could be a new champion by the end of today.
Una and I arrived bright and early, so we wouldn't miss a thing. The top 16 players were being gathered for photos as the first and second place trophies awaited the finalists on stage. To prepare for his match, Alex T indulged in his energy drink of choice.
He's gonna win now.
Once the crowd had arrived, everyone stood for the Tetris national anthem. And just like that, the action had started. After fighting all the way to the top 16, unfortunately Noe had to face a big 6 opponent, Fractal 161.
I don't know if he could, how much longer he can be able to survive.
Get it over, but it doesn't burn, and I don't know if it's ready for the next piece.
Oh no.
Oh, and that's gonna be it.
3 games later, Noe's tournament run had predictably finished, but his teammates Pollo and Oscar watched and applauded to the very end. And then there was Alex T's match. Now let's talk briefly about how his bizarre qualifier scrambled the bracket. If the big 6 had gotten the top 6 seeds as expected, the top 2 seeds would be rewarded by not having to face another big 6 member until the semifinals, and the other 4 would face each other in the quarterfinals. But because Alex T had finished down at the 8th seed, he would now face the number 1 seed and fellow big 6 member Fractal in the quarterfinals along with Andy and Huff, and Eric and Dog would have the easier path to the semifinals instead. Of course, Alex T still had to earn his way to the quarterfinals to begin with, as his opponent Xeno, the European champion, was no slouch, and would coast to a Game 1 victory over Alex with over 1.2 million points. Near the beginning of Game 2, Alex accidentally overrolled a square to the right and shook his head in disbelief. 2 more misdrops later and Alex had topped out and was now down 0-2 in the set. He unplugged his controller and jostled it around, hoping to correct whatever might be wrong with it. But game 3 would fare no better. He double flipped an S piece to get stuck in a high dig and then missed a long bar on the left that spelled game over.
And Thatchy hangs and tops out! Xeno completes an upset, and Thatchy is eliminated from the tournament.
For the first time in half a year, a member of the Big Six had been defeated by someone outside the Big Six. Alex slowly walked off stage, consoled by the cameraman, while Sidnev received a round of congratulations from fellow European players. Sidnev would end up becoming the only non-American to make the top 8 of the gold bracket. And to get over his tournament loss, Alex sat down at one of the qual stations and proceeded to obliterate the game, getting over 700,000 into level 19, nearly a perfect transition, and making it all the way to level 50 again. With the rest of the Big Six comfortably advancing, some of them took a break to relax before the top 8 matches began. Eric sat down to play Tetris the Grandmaster with the other TGM players, same as he had done on his laptop next to me on the airplane. And all this time there had still been action going on in the silver bracket. The finals would come down to aGameScout, a roller who had coasted his way through the left side of the silver bracket, and Ian Keith, an older DAS player who'd had an incredible run, taking out Quaid in the top 8 and Batfoy in the semifinals. The finals would be best of 5, same as the gold bracket. In game 1, Ian maintained a lead all the way until the end when the pieces didn't work out for him to push across the final Tetrises, and aGameScout was able to chase it down right before level 29 with a clean board.
Ian keeps in trouble. Ian keeps gonna be like, Tetris to aGameScout, 838, gonna take game number 1.
But in game 2, Ian would show off the capabilities of what DAS could do. He pulled off several incredible quick taps, the hardest trick within the DAS playstyle.
Oh no! Ian, oh! That was a quick tap from the heavens.
Although he topped out shortly afterwards, aGameScout would have a lengthy chase down, and after the board fell apart, things looked dire.
Oh no, another misshift! No! No! Get it over! Still get it over! Still get it over! Not dead yet! No! Cannot finish it, and we are tied!
With everything tied up, Ian Keith did his best, but couldn't pull out a win in game 3. He would need a win in game 4 to stay alive, and had a tough board due to a drought at the transition.
This is dangerously high right here. Well, oh no, well sealed! Well is sealed for Ian Keith. Getting that over. Wow, nice quick tap! Can Ian Keith get this down? Another quick tap. Oh no!
Unbelievably, Ian's game had ended the same way mine had. With only a small chase down needed, aGameScout got what he needed to seal up the silver bracket victory.
There's another one, 453. There it is! Ladies and gentlemen, aGameScout is your silver bracket CTWC 2022 champion! aGameScout! Hell yeah!
Up on the main stage, the top 8 of the gold bracket was about to start. Van Dweller, now relieved of his duties on the second stage, was broadcasting a live crowd cam to Twitch. And now we were really seeing the best of the best. All 4 players on the main stage were now rolling masters and able to handle themselves past level 29.
We are at level 29 speed
Double max out.
for all
Quadro max
4
out.
players.
Quadro kill screen, Quadro max out, let's go!
But level 29 was still incredibly tough. Sidnev played very well, getting a 1.1 million score into level 34 in game 3, but unfortunately was up against Big 6 member Fractal and would be defeated in a sweep, receiving a round of applause from the audience for the deep tournament run. Meanwhile, in the other matchup on stage, Huff and Andy were the only Big 6 matchup that ended up happening in the top 8, and Andy pulled off a sweep after Huff unfortunately couldn't get any deep runs going past level 29. Now it was time for the second pair of matchups in the top 8, and Eric ran up on stage holding his blow high and would be facing Hydrant Dude, who had actually briefly held the overall score world record a few years prior when competing under the alternate identity of Jones. Hydrant Dude held his own, throwing up max outs 3 games in a row, with Chris Bidwell ringing a cowbell for every max out, but Eric had just morphed into Mr. Consistent.
Edge of survival now. Oh, that's gonna spiral out of control, and with Eric in the lead, it's gonna sweep Hydrant, but what an survival effort.
Eric has just been playing incredibly today. Like, his consistency and ability to just keep playing. I don't think I even had a single lead during that whole time. I don't know if I could really expect to do much when he just doesn't top out.
And finally, Dog faced off against Brodendamp, who had made the top 8 in 2020, took a year off, and then in 2022 was back in the top 8 again, being the only player not using the rolling playstyle to make it this far. Brodendamp already would have earned the title of Comeback Player of the Year, but he poured on the case by getting an extra Tetris on level 29 without even rolling.
Boom, Tetris for Alan. That's 29. Another Tetris for Alan.
Brodendamp had incredibly scored over 1.2 million and built up a 100,000 point lead, but Dog was just too good.
Oh, okay. Gonna need a good tuck. Oh, that's gonna need some burning to clear it off.
At level 29 speeds.
Wow, what a dig. High speed digs.
Still alive, the double.
Wow.
Look at that.
Clean.
Clean board. 10,000 points left. 10,000. What a burn. What a burn for Dog.
And Dog sweeps Alan with authority.
And a
Tetris. But wow, just good seeing the sportsmanship between Alan and Dog.
Now we were down to the final 4. Nothing but Big 6 members. The possibility of a brother versus brother showdown in the finals loomed again. By this time, the other attendees of the expo were starting to crowd around to watch, and it was standing room only, and the semis did not disappoint. Immediately in Game 1, the commentators Chris Tang and James Chen noticed that Fractal was off to a perfect start.
Fractal up to a 38,000 point lead.
Because he's got a 100% Tetris rate.
Yeah, perfect game appearing before your eyes. Nothing but Tetrises. Boom, Tetris for Fractal. GameScout, are you ready to cover this? Because look at this. 100% Tetris. Could we see a transition with all Tetrises? Oh my goodness.
24.
100 lines in, Fractal was still perfect. This was absurd. I'd never heard a crowd cheer so hard for even a simple L dependency being filled.
Oh, Fractal set up again.
Every Tetris was another milestone at this point.
Oh my goodness. 104 lines. Another Tetris for Fractal.
Fractal pulled out all the stops to keep the streak going, even setting up for a vertical I-tuck setup. This would be the end, however, as a line piece didn't come afterwards and Fractal didn't want to risk throwing the game away. But he finished with 108 lines of perfection, or 27 straight Tetrises to start off.
97% Tetris rate, 115 lines. Standing ovation for the Fractals. Amazing Tetris streak. Standing ovation, wow!
But that is definitely a record.
And if you could believe it, in the end, Fractal actually didn't end up winning the game. He hung a long bar on level 31, and Andy was able to chase down the deficit for the Game 1 victory. But Fractal shook it off no sweat and crushed it in the next 3 games, throwing up a trio of 1.1 million scores and capping off a victory when Andy set up for a Tetris and got droughted on level 29.
Oh, that left side's already a problem. But they're able to get the level over. And Fractal is going to take the round and the match.
There would be no brother versus brother rematch today. For the first time ever, Fractal had made the finals.
This does not feel real, I think.
And then it was time for Eric's match versus Dog. And despite being a Big 6 member and playing well all day, it still felt like Eric was the underdog here. After all, he was facing the reigning 2-time world champion. But then in Game 1, right after the level 29 transition, Dog went for a Tetris and misdropped, causing his board to spiral out of control and top out, while Eric just kept calmly lining out. With double 1.1 million scores, the first round went to Eric. Game 2, double 1.1 million scores happened again, with Dog lining out for a little longer this time, but then tried to set up a center well and misdropped right after. And Eric chased down the score with ease to go up 2 games to none. The crowd couldn't believe it. Was Dog, who potentially could have won his 3rd title in a row, about to go out in a sweep? In Game 3, Dog kept trying to thread the needle of balancing, lining out, and going for Tetrises, but Eric had built up an enormous lead and just wouldn't die.
Eric's screen is filling up a little bit.
Yeah,
Can he
just
burn back
a little
down?
more than you're used to seeing from Eric.
Oh!
Whoa! We just saw a perfect clear from Eric.
Dog was pushed beyond where he'd ever had to go before in a live event, and his board fizzled out at level 39.
And isn't able to hold on. Eric completes the sweep and eliminates the 2-time world champion, Dog playing Tetris. and will advance. But wow, what a run by Dog.
It's such a different experience in CTWC, you know. The nerves just get to you, and I feel like that's one advantage that Eric has. He's just so good at staying composed, and that's honestly such a big reason why he's one of the best players now.
Then, a very special guest was invited to the main stage. Back in 2019 at the World Championships, a little girl had stole the show by shouting boom after every Tetris along with the commentators. And now, 3 years later, she would be interviewed before the finals.
So I have with me the lovely little Anastasia. How you doing, honey?
Good.
You came in 2019, you got to see all that. Who was your favorite player back then?
Quaid.
Oh, of course, yes. You are most certainly in the majority of that. They is a fan favorite.
And she turned out to be a skilled interviewee, navigating difficult questions like a pro.
Here we are now, you're live again. Do you have a new favorite player that's here now? Maybe Fractal or Eric? Which one do you think might be the winner?
I don't know. They're both good.
So there you go, the winner of CTWC 22. It'll be a tie. They're going to share the trophy here.
Fractal and Eric took the stage, and it was time to determine a new champion. At this point, the crowd had grown to its largest size yet. Cameras of all types were focused on the players. Even Thor Ackerland, the original winner of the 1990 Nintendo World Championships and first person to reach level 30 in NES Tetris on video, was in attendance, sitting next to the judge, having been given the best seat in the house.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
All the fancy moves were being pulled out right from the start.
Fractal starting out with a strong...
look at that old tuck.
That was so nice, and he should be able to tuck that in
with
there.
A spin.
Just like that. Oh, here we go.
Perfect clear. Boom, perfect clear for Fractal.
And after the game had really gotten going, some European-style chants started to emerge. Both Eric and Fractal showed right away why they were finalists, cruising their way to the first double 1.3 million score of the tournament on level 40.
Double 1.3!
We are here in uncharted territory. We knew records were going to be broken, and now this is it.
Eventually, Fractal would be the first to falter. He finally had some misdrops do him in on level 47, clinging to barely a 30,000 point lead. But then Eric hung a critical longbow on the left on level 48 and topped out just short.
Oh, no, he plugged it up.
Okay, can he open it up?
Oh my God!
Takes the first round.
48 to 47 levels, 1.5 each. We have over 3 million points between these two players. That was game number 1.
And now Fractal just seemed to be coasting. He built up a massive lead in game 2 going into level 29, but then suddenly topped out on level 36 with only 1.3 million. In almost any other context, this would be a tremendous game, but here it almost felt like an early top out. This would be a much bigger chase down, but this time Eric didn't fumble and sealed the victory on level 44.
There it is, and Eric!
So we are 1-1.
The 189,000 point chase down. We are 1-1.
And then a moment happened that had all the photographers in the room rejoicing. The lights on the ceiling finally got undimmed.
Oh my gosh, I can finally turn down the ISO on my camera.
With game 3 underway and both players tied at 1 apiece, this was looking like an evenly matched set, and the entire crowd was getting into the chants. And now this is where things truly went off the rails. Eric and Fractal went past level 40, then past level 50, and then level 60. The game was never originally designed to last this long. The programmers had set the maximum speed of the game to be reached at level 29, and for decades it had marked the end of the game. And even the best recent rollers hadn't been able to survive indefinitely, but if you could just somehow keep playing at this speed, there was effectively no practical limit on how long the match could go. Eric and Fractal were closing in on 2 million points each, which was almost beyond comprehension, and I had a brief flashback to Y2K as I wondered whether the sharpening program would even display it on the score counter.
$2 million. First $2 million to CTWC.
Well, Fractal got into trouble. His board was high and dependent. He would need a bailout long bar to survive.
He's a long bar. Wow! Boom! Tetris for Fractal.
A Tetris at level 67.
This was the first actual Tetris clear the match had seen in quite some time. But Eric was up for the dare and struck right back.
Oh, look at Eric! Eric! Answering back with a Tetris.
Another one. A Tetris at level 70. At level 69.
The end was nigh, though, as Fractal's board once again climbed up to the top, and his game finished at level 69 with just a small lead. Could Eric chase down the score once more?
9-2. Single.
Chase down happen, Eric. His strategy of survival is still holding true.
All Thor Ackerlund could do in the back was laugh. How ridiculous was this? The players had basically broken the game. For the longest time, the entire strategy meta was around getting Tetrises. But now you could chase down virtually any size deficit with any type of line clear you wanted past level 29. In fact, the game had lasted so long that Eric ran off the stage to take a bathroom break before game 4. The only question now was, what the heck was going to happen next? With Eric at match point, the crowd counted down what could be the final game of the day.
3, 2, 1.
Right before level 29, the most crucial moment to have a clean board for the big speed change, disaster struck for Fractal. He wallowed into an infamous board situation where there's no clean spot for squares, and as luck would have it, he got 2 squares in a row.
Fractal having a lot of holes looking like type B. You can't survive type B on 29, can you? Or can you? Let's find out.
He did his absolute best to try and dig out, but it would have taken an absolute miracle. When he hung a long bar on the left, creating an 11 high gap, he surrendered. As on this speed, getting another long bar over 10 rows left required a frame-perfect 30 Hz roll, and anything higher was just impossible. Eric was moments away from closing the score gap, and then it happened.
There it is, Eric! ICX with the endurance strategy has become your 2022 CTWC champion!
We have a new champion!
Eric sat, seemingly in a daze, taking the moment in right before he was lined up for an interview.
Eric, let's go in and discuss here. Obviously, Fractal, a more than formidable opponent for you. How were you able to concentrate through that whole entire ordeal?
I have no idea. I don't know if I'm going to be able to ever do it again, but just for this once, just to be up there, it's the best thing in the world. And this is the best day of my life so far.
Ladies and gentlemen, the 2022 World Champion of Classic Tetris, Eric ICX!
Eric walked off the stage to rest against the wall for a moment, in preparation for inevitably getting mobbed by all the other Tetris players wanting to see the golden trophy up close, which was in the shape of a J in remembrance of Jonas Neubauer, the 7-time champion that had passed away 2 years prior. The line etched on the back of the J trophy was a quote he had made during an interview saying,
"If you're a high visibility player, it's on you to move the community in a positive direction."
And sure enough, Eric was about to be a very high visibility player, rocketing to the top of Reddit for his record-setting moment in the finals, and even hitting the top of the Blowhigh subreddit for having a blowhigh during his interview.
So that's what happens when you win CWC. Just endless Discord notifications.
You're here first. 2022 CTWC champ.
Then Greg Cannon drove a group of us, including Eric, to the Afterparty, which was hosted at Desert Island Studios, where Eric did what was only natural for any newly crowned Tetris World Champion to do: play more Tetris. The festivities really got going when everyone else arrived, but the best part was that we noticed there was a piano at the venue. I remembered that the qual checker Chris Forrest had written a parody Tetris song several years prior that many people were familiar with called When You Get the Line, to the tune of Pompeii by Bastille, and I asked him if he would be willing to do a live performance of it with me for the crowd. The next day, it was time to head home, but everyone's stories weren't quite over yet. So what happened after the World Championships for everyone? Funnily enough, the silver bracket winner DeAsian's local news station would end up running a story on him, declaring him to be the overall Tetris World Champion.
He's a young man, defeated everybody around the world. What's like the big secret? How do you win?
My secret is a lot of practice, getting less sleep, and having a lot of free time.
So there it is. Now you know what it takes to be the World Tetris Champion.
As for the Big Six, Dog would go on to continue to win more monthly titles, and set a new record with the highest pre-29 transition score in classic Tetris monthly history. And he would also face his brother Dog in the finals of several more monthly titles, and actually win in August 2023, finally pulling off a win in a huge moment against his brother. Hufflepuffus would continue his overall dominance and rack up more regional titles. Second place finisher Fractal had actually been an advocate since long before the tournament that the rolling technique meant NES Tetris was gonna need a ROM patch that added a line cap, and that this would encourage better strategies in the game.
My perspective has always been that tournament play should prioritize like the highest level of play possible, and I think that's going aggressive, going for Tetrises, like having good plans. I find going for Tetrises on 29 more like mechanically impressive than just like lining out the way that I did. If we were to reward this something that prioritizes efficiency, I think line caps are the simplest and most elegant solution to that.
This wasn't to try and gain any advantage for himself. After all, Fractal was one of the best line-outers in the scene. After the World Championships finals though, Fractal had been able to prove his point beyond a shadow of a doubt.
Back when we were talking about maybe changing how we do competitive in an attempt to like encourage different styles of stacking, I told Eric we were gonna have a long game someday. And then we met in CTM and then it completely failed. It was so sad, I blew the chance. But we're here now, and like I actually like came through this time. So I'm just really happy right now. And doing my best not to think about all the homework I have due in the next 2 days.
And even the winner Eric agreed when asked off stage about his thoughts on line caps for next year.
Needed 100%. Go even longer next year since the line cap.
But as it turns out, Fractal would get an even better version of his wish. It started to become standard in top tournaments not to have a line cap, but a new final speed increase at level 39, where the game reaches a truly ludicrous speed dubbed the Super Kill Screen. Alex T would actually find redemption by winning the biggest tournament with the Super Kill Screen, the Mega Masters tournament in April 2023.
Tommy gets another one in, can't get the long bar over, gets it over for the 0.68, but it is not enough because Alex is already ahead and has clinched the Game 5 victory, and Alex T is your new Mega Masters champion.
And then finally, the champion Eric ICX, after many months of work, released an 80-minute magnum opus on his YouTube channel celebrating the world record progression of high scores in the NES Tetris community. As for me, I finally got something I had been aiming at for a very long time, just a month and a half after the tournament happened.
Come on! Is that it? Oh my gosh! Woohoo! Max out!
At the very beginning of my Tetris journey back in 2018, I probably would have said I had two long-term stretch goals in mind, to one day make it into the bracket at CTWC and also max out the game. And years later, well, I managed to do it. So I feel like I can be satisfied no matter what happens now. But there's one additional thing I got that I wouldn't have expected at the beginning of when I started playing, and that's to become part of an incredible community of supportive people. I've said it in videos in the past, but the best part of Tetris, and really any niche hobby you can find enjoyment in, is is the ability to connect with a ton of people you otherwise never would have met. And because of that, I'm so glad the World Championships finally got to return to being in person. And the great thing is, in less than a week, we get to do this all over again. At the time of uploading this, the 2023 World Championships are happening in just a few days with basically the exact same format as 2022, but with the addition of the super kill screen. And there really isn't a big six this year. With how many new top players and upsets we've seen over the monthly tournaments recently, there's as many as a dozen players or more that are legitimate contenders for the title. I don't know if I'll be able to make the brackets again, but I'll be there the entire time to document what happens as best I can. And thank you to all the incredible people who've supported me on the Patreon page I launched last month to make more videos like this in the future possible. With an extra special thank you to channel sponsors Scott Gray and Dave Jones. Until then, thanks for watching. See you in the next video.